Hello and welcome in, my fellow nerds. It's me, Mikaze, here on the Nerd Crew channel, and today I'm doing a Real Talk review on The Last of Us Part 2. Okay, so I know I am very, very late with this game, but I finally got a chance to play and finish The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I have to admit that a big reason I had avoided this game for so long was because I loved the first game. And I saw all the hatred surrounding this game when it released. So I was kind of scared, honestly. I was like, what if people are right online? What if it really does ruin the first one? You know, I heard some good things from some Twitch streamers and YouTubers that I trust, but I don't know, there was still that nagging feeling in the back of my mind where it was like, man, I'm afraid to play this game because I'm afraid it's going to ruin the first one for me. But with that being said, I still always wanted to give it a try for myself. And with the advent of the new HBO TV show hitting its second season, which by the time of filming this video, the second season is actually done with and wrapped up, I forced myself to play this game before I could get any spoilers. Because, I don't know how it happened. Some kind of, internet gods blessing me or just crafty internet dodging from me. I actually only came across like 2 spoilers before playing this game. That's pretty amazing for someone who waited, 4-5-ish years after its release to finally play it. But for the record, this review will be chock full of spoilers. So if somehow you're like me and you haven't gotten spoiled on this game yet, go ahead and just turn the video off now. Go ahead. I won't be offended. Go watch another Nerd Crew video if you can. And, I did give you a spoiler warning, so maybe drop me a like. But anyway. All right, for those of you who stayed, let's get into it. It's no secret that this game was just thrashed online. But for this Real Talk review, I had to look at some of the reviews and see what exactly people said. And holy shit, critics loved this game, but players, they hated it. On Metacritic, its Metascore for reviewers is like 93 out of 100. But its user score is, I think it was 5.8 out of 10. That is a massive, insane difference between review numbers. And so I had to read some of the user reviews to see what the hell did people hate about this game so much. Because don't get me wrong, critics can be wrong. It's just because you're a critic doesn't mean that your opinion is perfect or 100% accurate. But that's a big, big difference. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to go over some of the reviews that I found. One review from a user called Mr. Rose gave it a 7, saying, and I quote, "I have no problems with the shocking twist and saw it coming after playing the first game. I also have no problems with the inclusion of diverse characters. It's simply that this game is a relentlessly grim slog to play through that I can't fully recommend it. It is, however, extremely technically accomplished." Now, I will say that review is a newer review from, I think it was from June of this year, actually. And I will say this game is getting newer reviews because of the show coming out is having people, want to go and play the game. They go and play the game, and some of them are dropping reviews. And for the record, this game is getting review bombed out the ass, just like the show is. But now this review, I think, is kind of a fair one. I totally get that the game can be pretty dark and grim, and maybe it doesn't resonate with everyone, but I will say this is a sequel to an incredibly dark and grim game, so I feel like this Mr. Rose person probably should have known that ahead of time. So maybe a 7's a little unfair from this person. I feel like they should have known. You know what I mean? But another review, this one I had to translate from Spanish, from a CJ_lit, gave it a 4, saying, and I quote, "The Last of Us Part 2, 4 out of 10. An interactive movie with punishing gameplay, The Last of Us 2 isn't a video game. It's a forced morality show where you mash buttons to kill your favorite characters, and if you don't cry at every death, they'll throw more cinematics at you until you do. It's a festival of questionable decisions with a shocking narrative just for the sake of feeling profound. What did they do with Joel? They nerfed him like Krillin in Dragon Ball and kicked him to death because of realism. And Abby, the protagonist with more charisma than a wet toaster, who they force you to play just so you hate her a little less. Spoiler, it doesn't work. Recycled gameplay, boring stealth, half-deaf AI, and all interrupted by long cutscenes where no one smiles. Characters that change personality in seconds as if they were poorly programmed bots. Where's the soul of the first game? It died with Joel in the first quarter of the game. 30 hours of hatred, misery, and self-flagellation with a profound message of revenge is bad, but look at those graphics. The good, next-gen graphics, insane animations, and a decent soundtrack. The bad, everything else. A dragging story, forced narrative decisions, flat characters, punishing gameplay, and fanboys who attack you if you don't cry at every scene. Actual rating, 4 stars. A technical work trapped in a narrative ego. If you wanted to play the game, you chose the wrong product. This is a novel of suffering with QuickTime events. It's not the worst thing ever made, but it's definitely the most overrated game of the century. Now, I just have to take a moment because, first off, you're giving this game a 4 out of 10, okay? Which means you must have really disliked this game. And when you give a game a 4, that means things like it probably had technical problems, maybe the gameplay wasn't good, maybe it wasn't fun, whatever. But if you pick apart this, review, like some of the lines out of it, it's saying that, first off, he didn't like Abby, the main character on the other side. He's also talking about how Joel was killed early on, and how I will say a lot of people had a problem with that, because a lot of people liked Joel from the first game, and so killing him off was, it was a choice, and it was a choice they made. But this person mentions dumb things like long cutscenes where no one smiles. It's a dark game, dude, about a zombie apocalypse. It's not fucking happy-go-lucky little kitty adventure games. Like, what are you on about? This screams. When they bitch about Abby and then they say things like no one smiles, that just screams the old oh, why doesn't, Captain Marvel smile? It's like, oh, come on, get over yourself. I'm sorry, but damn. And then he's saying 30 hours of hatred, misery, and self-flagellation with the message of revenge is bad. First off, I don't understand that whole line because it's this game is a revenge story. So yes, it's going to be a dark storyline. It's going to be talking about things like misery and hatred. It's a zombie apocalypse. It's the same thing things like Walking Dead did. This isn't a fun zombie game. This isn't supposed to be I can't even remember the game right now where you're stuck in the mall and you're making random weapons to chop up zombies. That's not what this game is. And if you even played the first game and liked it, you would know that. This is not supposed to be a fun-go-lucky, happy adventure game. This is a dark tale with dark twists. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. That review was a little bit, it just screamed politically right. Let's just say that. But another review giving it a 0, also translated from Spanish, from a user named Kazo, said, quote, fuck, this garbage game, I hate Joel dies, so let's count to 100, and then he proceeds to literally type out 1 all the way to 29, ... I'm tired like everyone else is playing this shit. What would possess you to go online and review bomb a game like this? Again, this is another review from recent. This is June of this year, if I remember correctly. Maybe May. No, I think this is a June of this year review. I'm tired like everyone else is playing this shit. It's June of this year. There's not that many people playing this game this year, okay? This is someone who went out of their way to review bomb it because they don't like the fact that their favorite character dies in it. And giving a game a 0, that's not really fair to the people who made the game. You know what I mean? If the game is actual trash garbage, then it makes sense. But this is a game that people worked hard on. This is a game with a great story, great graphics, not a lot of technical issues that I'm aware of. And you're just bombing the shit out of it because you don't like one little thing about it and you're going to make a big deal out of it. Whatever, man. All right. And another review from a user named Godlight gave it a 1, saying, I hated everything about this game. I'd rather wipe my ass with a cactus than ever waste my time with this trash ever again. The story, it says 4 stars. I think that's a censorship thing on Metacritic. The characters that meant anything dead. And to top it off, the arrogance of Neil turns me off, especially with how bad this is as a product. Nothing about this game is good, and it's literally DEI slop. I'm usually neutral about this sort of stuff, but this was so badly blatant that I couldn't even finish the cringe fest that is this crapshoot and another censored thing at all costs. You'd have a better time playing Throne and Liberty if you know you know. First off, why are you mentioning other games in your review? You gave it a 1, which doesn't make a lot of sense because this is the type of person who would give it a 0 like the previous guy. And this person literally says, it's literally DEI slop. I'm usually neutral about this sort of stuff, but it was so badly blatant that I couldn't even finish the cringe fest. You stay neutral about this stuff, but you're using terms like DEI slop. Okay, buddy, you're not fooling anyone. And then the final review I'll go over is from a user named Osama Sama with a 0. I think they sum it up pretty well, where this is why it's getting the reviews it's getting. They said, in terms of quality, this is definitely the best game ever, but when it comes to story, we got one of the worst stories ever in a video game. Poor characters writing awful dialogues. Forced characters with poor and unjustified backstory, a big presentation of agendas content. And then in brackets, feminism, LGBTQ without any reason causing a big wave of hate against this game. Now, overall, you can see by these reviews how this game was perceived as quote-unquote woke garbage, plagued with DEI, propaganda, political messaging, blah, 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 blah. Now I know what they're referring to. I know the exact characters that they're hating on. They're hating on Abby. They're hating on, I can't remember the kid's name, honestly, right now. They're hating on the trans character. They're hating on the fact that, you know, Joel dies early on. They despise the fact that Ellie is in a relationship with another woman. They despise and ultra hate the fact that Joel dies to a female character who is supposed to be perceived as a strong character. And, you know, come on, man. This game came out in 2020, which back then was a very politically divisive time, not only in the US, but really in the entire world. And let's just face it, it's 2025, and it still is. Hence why this game is still getting review bombed as we speak. Now, because the show is out, people are going back to basically re-review bomb not only the show, but the game. And they're bringing the same arguments they had when it was first released, because all the reviews that I read earlier were from June of 2025, except for that last one, the one by Osama Sama, which was from June 2021. I tried getting closer, but Metacritic doesn't let you like filter, so I was just scrolling and scrolling until I got closer to the reviews that were closer to the actual release date. However, with that being said, I incredibly and highly disagree with all the negativity about this game. I loved this game. It was a dark tale of the tragedy and the domino effects of the cycle of revenge, which is a simplistic story. It's been done a million times. I mean, you can think of things like in Naruto with the Uchiha clan. You can think of things like John Wick with them, you know, killing his dog and then him going, you know, to get revenge, which begets more revenge, which begets even more revenge. I mean, these stories, they're common. They're not, I wouldn't say they're like super common, but they're pretty common story types, you know. People online have craved any reason to label games, movies, shows, and any media they can get their hands on as woke leftist propaganda, socialist bullshit, DEI, and whatever other bullshit label they can put on it because they're fragile little snowflake babies who can't handle that the world around them is changing and is looking a little less black and white than it used to. I don't really tend to get political online, but I knew when I made this Real Talk review that it was going to get a little political and it was going to get a little controversial, especially after reading some of the reviews, because I didn't put every review I read here on my little script, but like they all basically said the exact same shit. And I noticed that a surprising amount of them were in Spanish. I don't know if that matters, but like there was a lot of them, that hence why I translated like 2 or 3 of them. But as I said earlier, The Last of Us Part 2 is another great story revolving around the concept of how revenge just begets more pain, more suffering, and more hatred than it solves. And I personally think that this game did a great job forcing the player to be uncomfortable with the idea of it. It has you play as Ellie and Abby in different ways. That was the 2 spoilers that I had gotten before playing this game in the last 5 years, was that 1, Joel dies early on, and 2, that you actually have to play as Abby in the second half of the game. And Ellie is more of like that stealthy character. She's hell-bent on risking it all, including her own morality and her own friendships to get this revenge for the death of her father figure, who, for the record, she realizes, you realize in the game that she knows that she messed up her relationship with him, and technically he messed up their relationship, but alas, he's killed very brutally in front of her before she has time to make things right. And so now in her mind, she has to get revenge for his sake. And then halfway through the game, you play as her antithesis, which is Abby. This not stealthy person, very strong, jacked character who, is all about, being a strong person, brute forcing her way through life, as well as through sections of this game, or at least that's what you're supposed to do. And now, I did want to go into the story of this game a little bit. The story of this game is basically, and again, this is a spoiler warning if you've even gotten this far. I've already kind of dropped a few spoilers, but this is the basic story premise of the game. You go through half this game, drudging through to your objective, finding and killing Abby, who is, Joel's murderer. All while you're fixated on your goal, you stumble upon a huge conflict between Abby's people and another group. Basically, it's the wolves versus the scars. And then, after Ellie basically abandons her own humanity for revenge that she doesn't even end up getting, she just returns to her group, who finally just convince her, let it go, man, let's go back and just live our lives. You've killed enough people. You've killed enough of the people who were in the room when Joel died. You've gotten enough revenge for now. Just let Abby go. And then when that moment happens is when the big turning point of the game goes off, and then Abby finds Ellie and basically kills another one of her friends. And then it becomes a conflict again. The second part of the game is now you go and play as Abby. And you have to play through the whole storyline up until the moment where she's tracked down Ellie after Ellie's just killed a lot of her friends. And the entire time you're playing as her, she's coming to grip with her own demons. She ends up realizing that the wolves aren't exactly the good guys, and that the scars, who are her enemies, are really just people trying to make it in their own way in this world. It's a very culty kind of way, which also has its own problems. She meets these two scar kids who, are seen as like defectors, and she is there and she helps them survive because they saved her at one point, so she's going to try and help them survive as much as possible. And that's when you really see the brutality of the war between the wolves and the scars. And it actually gets to a point where it softens Abby. This is supposed to be a character who is supposed to be just rock hard, like beast her way through life. And this really does just like soften her outlook on life. And it even gets up to the point where you end up confronting and then beating the shit out of Ellie. And before Abby, kills her, she ends up letting her go in her attempt to break this cycle of revenge. With the help of her friend, who I can't remember the kid's damn name, but because I think they say it a few times, but it's like really quick and I just never caught it. But the next and the final chapters of the game have you play as Ellie again, only this time she's just ravaged with PTSD. She's not eating, she's not sleeping, she's just suffering. She's driving herself crazy, all while now being with her girlfriend. She's, her girlfriend wants her to try to just forget the past and live with her and be a family, but she just can't let this stuff go. And so basically you go down and you hunt down Abby again. You find out she's been captured and strung up by another group that you come across. And then the finale of this game is just a raw, emotional, painful to watch battle between these two women who are literally at their lowest points. Ellie is thin, she's frail, sleep deprived, beaten up. She just went through hell and back to find Abby. And then Abby, who you find out at the end of the game, has just been basically tortured. She's been used as like a slave for a while. And remember, this is supposed to be the unbreakable Abby, the strong persona. And it's just gone. You can tell the way they design her character at the end. She clearly also hasn't been sleeping much. She hasn't eaten a lot. She's dehydrated. She's been literally crucified at the ocean, at the beach for like quite some time, barely hanging on. And then you have to sit there and watch them battle it out. It's pretty emotional. Now, to me, this story sounds fantastic. It sounds epic. It sounds raw. It sounds like an emotional journey. But a lot of people just hated on it from the 1 second that Joel is killed. The whole point of this is his death leads to all of this. But like most of the reviews just give it like a 0 to 4. And almost every review said the same thing. They just bitched how Joel was killed. And like, woe is me, how dare they kill off the best written character in gaming history? It's like, come on, man, get over yourself. It's fine if you like Joel. It's fine if you love Joel and that you're sad or you're angry that he dies in the game. But it's such a small footnote on this game's real story. And if honestly you can't see that, well, tough shit for you, man. I don't know what to say. Now, with all that, I will say that I did have a couple issues with the game. Remember, this is a real talk review. I want to give you my full opinion on the game and let you know if I think you should play it or not. And the first one has to be the boss fights. There aren't many of them, but damn, they can be frustratingly brutal. I actually just watched a TikTok where someone was doing one of the boss fights, and they did it like that. Like, they sped run it. And I was just like, how the fuck did they do this on a hard difficulty? Because I played the whole game on basically normal difficulty, and you have to fight this like tank thing in the basement of a hospital where you play as Abby, and you basically just have to like brute force your way through it. And just, I ended up dying, I don't know, 20, 30 times fighting that damn thing, and I was getting pretty pissed. And then there's the point where you play as Ellie up until a point where Abby finds you. Then you play as Abby back to that exact point, and then that's the point where you play as Abby and you have to fight Ellie for the first time. And at that point, you basically are forced to use Abby as a sneak person. You have to sneak around Ellie, and it is fucking hard, man. It's so damn frustrating. You're constantly getting one shot in both of those boss fights, and you're just trying to figure out what the game wants you to do. The second thing I had an issue with, which is pretty minor, but the game also missed, in my opinion, a great opportunity in the end to, when you play as Ellie looking for Abby, you find out that she tried to escape and she's caught and taken to the beach to be strung up. And I think that would have been a great opportunity for the devs to let you play as Abby just one last little time so that you can play her escape, and then when she's captured, it just like cuts to black and then it's Ellie on the beach. You know what I mean? I think that would have been a little bit better. You know, that's very nitpicky. I think they still did a great job. And I get why they did it, because they wanted you as the player to be Ellie finding Abby and finding her in her weakened state. So I get it. I just kind of wish I was able to play as Abby like one last time before then. And actually, the last thing that I will say that I truly despise about this game, and more reviews should mention this, is those goddamn dogs, dude. The game clearly states you can sneak around them, you can distract them, but it felt fucking impossible. Every single time I tried to get around the dogs without killing them, I would just die a ton of times. And so at one point, and Erica's sitting next to me, and Erica's an avid dog lover, and at one point I just blew one away, and she was just like, dude, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I cannot get around this thing. And from that point on, I looked her dead in the face and was like, listen, if you don't want to watch me play this game anymore, that's fine, because I'm telling you right now, anytime a dog comes on screen, I'm putting a round in it, because those things are impossible to get around. I tried every which way to do it. There is just like, I got to watch a YouTube tutorial or something like that, because I just could not find a humane way of doing it. I had to just basically take out the shotgun and just blow them away in one shot. Otherwise, they would attack me, and then the person leading the dogs would just end up killing me. So those are kind of my little small complaints about it. But some other stuff I liked about the game besides the story was just the overall gameplay. The game clearly wants you to sneak around with Ellie and brute force with Abby, but it gives you the freedom not to. I brute force with Ellie a ton of times. It just ended up being easier and faster sometimes than sneaking around. And especially in certain points of the game where there's just a lot of enemies, I would try to sneak around, especially with the dogs. I would try to sneak around. It wouldn't work like 3 or 4 times, and then I would look at Erica, who was watching me play this, and I'd be like, fuck it. We're going balls to the walls. And I would just load up on whatever ammo and parts I could, and I would just, basically I would Alamo it. I would find a place where I could sit, and I would lure enemies to me, and I would just one by one pick them off, because the game lets you do that. And again, with Abby, it basically wants you to brute force your way through the game, but I found myself sneaking around with her a lot of the times. So I almost like role reverse them a lot, because you just could. The game doesn't force you to. It just gives you the suggestion that this is how you're supposed to play them, but you don't have to. And obviously another thing that I thought, that I liked about this game was obviously like the graphics were great, the music is great, the scenery is great, just overall artistically, the game looked and sounded fantastic. So for me, for this Real Talk review, this game is a must-play game. Hear me now. Avoid and ignore all the bullshit drummed up controversy and just play it for yourself. For my Real Talk reviews, I don't give scores to games because, you can see from this game, scores are biased. They don't matter in the long run. And sometimes they can just be drummed up, emotionally charged bullshit. For me, I want these reviews to be more of like a, me talking to a friend telling them whether or not I think they should play this game. Is it, a game that you should avoid? Is it a game I think maybe you might like? Is it a game that I think that everyone should play? That is what I want you to get out of these reviews. And so for me, the answer is a resounding must play. If you haven't played the first game, I highly recommend playing it first. Or you can watch season 1 of the HBO show, because I think it does a great job of going over the first game and is very accurate to the first game. I can't say the same for season 2. It's currently getting review bombed out the ass. I think as recording of this video, I think it's done. I think the finale came up, and basically, from what I understand, the second season goes from Ellie's perspective, the first third of the second game. So there's that. So there's probably going to be a season 3, and honestly, there might be a season 4. Though after I played the game, I realized they could stretch this out for 4 seasons. But I don't know if you should watch the second game. I wouldn't watch the second season instead of playing the game. I would watch the first season and play the second game, or play the first game and then play the second game. All right, and with that, I will say thanks again for watching my Real Talk review on The Last of Us Part 2. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the game, if you played it. What kind of score would you give it? Would you recommend it to other people? Let me know down below. And if you like these kinds of reviews, throw a like, maybe a subscribe. There's more Real Talk reviews coming your way. And here on Nerd Crew, we don't just talk about video games. We do anything nerdy. That can be video games, but it can also be board games, manga, anime, whatever else that you could just nerd out to. And with that, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later.